And we are live. This is the Thursday night football preview. We are joined with Anthony Cervino. How's it going, Anthony?
I'm doing great, Shane. How are you?
I'm doing good. How's the football season going for you so far?
Really good. I'm a Cowboys fan, so things could be better on that. And otherwise, it's been a fun year.
Yeah, I'm a Raider fan, so I've dealt with the hardships a little bit as well. But for both our teams, things are going up a little bit. The Cowboys had a tough week 10, but um, I mean, I think they're the favorite to win that division right now. So, I think you're in a better spot than me with the Raiders.
Honestly, I've been saying it for weeks, and some people think I'm nuts. I think the Raiders will be at least a wild card team. And if the Chiefs can't get it together with not only stopping the run, but also running the football and protecting Patrick Mahomes, I think they're in danger of possibly losing that division to Oakland. I mean, what do they have? 4 losses already? A couple losses at
Yeah,
home? It's not the same Chiefs team.
it's not. The Patrick Mahomes injury definitely hurt them a little more than I expected. I thought that team was going to rally, but he's back. Let's see if they get back to the ways they were last year. But let's kick off this preview. We're talking Thursday Night Football. It's a big game this week, division rivalry. It is the Pittsburgh Steelers, 5-4 in the year so far, going against the Cleveland Browns, who are 3-6. Let's break this game down. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, the most significant injury report is coming from James Conner, where he is cleared and expected to play. That's going to be a big addition to the Steelers because they've been okay without Conner. But Jalen Samuels is averaging, fewer than 2 yards per carry in his 2 starts. And Benny Snell and Trey Edmonds looked good, but I believe they're both a little bit banged up. So getting James Conner back is a huge boost for this offense and Mason Rudolph. But the biggest impact for the Steelers team after losing Big Ben, and a lot of props to the general manager Kevin Colbert, was going out and getting Minka Fitzpatrick because he single-handedly changed the dynamic of this defense. Fantasy football wise, since week 3, since getting Minka Fitzpatrick, I believe that week, they've scored double-digit fantasy points in every game. And since Minka's been there, this is a guy who's had right around 2 interceptions in a full season and a handful of games with the Miami Dolphins, and already has right around 3 to 4 interceptions with the Steelers in a couple of games.
Yeah, I want to talk about the James Conner thing a little bit.
He has 5. I'm sorry. Minka has 5 with the Steelers, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, that it is. The defense has played better than I expected. It When Big Ben went down, I pretty much thought this team was done for. I thought what I thought was going to be a weak AFC North, which I believe it still is, besides the Ravens, of course. I thought this division was just going to be a cakewalk for every other team in the league. The Ravens obviously are a powerhouse offensively, but the Steelers defensively they've been playing pretty solid, and Mason Rudolph has definitely turned some heads. Do you think he is the quarterback of the future over there in Pittsburgh?
I don't know if he's going to be the quarterback of the future. I can certainly see Big Ben coming back next year. But Mason Rudolph isn't terrible. I think he's still in that wait and see mode because they're not really unleashing him. A lot of his throws are short and intermediate throws around the line of scrimmage. They're protecting him, which is fine. And some of the touchdowns that he's throwing are because of the athleticism of Juju Smith-Schuster and Deontay Johnson. Last week, we did see James Washington have one of his best games of his young NFL career, and Washington did play his college ball with Mason Rudolph, so that could be an emerging relationship there. But I think the Steelers will have to rely on their running game and their defense. This is the best defense since Ryan Shazier and certainly since the Troy Polamalu days. The Steelers of the past, they were a running and defensive football team. They were never a big offensive number team. So I think this is something that is familiar, especially to Mike Tomlin.
For what they've lost, I gotta give Rudolph credit. Let's look at his stats in the year. I just pulled them up. he only has 4 interceptions thrown. You gotta love that stat. He's played 7 games, 11 touchdowns, 1,300 passing yards. He lost 2 of the best offensive weapons in the league. Yeah, Juju won the team MVP last year, but Antonio Brown is one of the best receivers in the NFL. Currently not in the NFL, of course. We all know the storylines behind that. And then Le'Veon Bell. James Conner did step in and fill his shoes a little bit, but I don't think Conner is remarkably close to the player Le'Veon Bell is. But, yeah, like you said with the defense, that is a great point. Their defense is playing phenomenal. It is very similar to when Ryan Shazier was there. And that is something that I believe has really, really helped Mason Rudolph and have given him a little bit of a security blanket. So let's go on to the other side of things. What do you think? I mean, what about the Browns? I mean, people expected that team to be a powerhouse offensively just because they signed Odell Beckham. I mean, Kareem Hunt is finally back. What are you thinking about this team?
Going into the season, I was one of those who did not buy into the hype. I did not buy into the Browns because, the games that Baker Mayfield played well last season, they were against inferior opponents. And he did struggle against the tougher opponents. So coming into this year, yes, they added Odell Beckham Jr., and, we knew Kareem Hunt was going to come back at some point. But one of the biggest mistakes that I think that they've made was trading Kevin Zeitler, their guard, to the New York Giants for Olivier Vernon, because Zeitler's loss created a big hole in an offensive line that already wasn't that good. And we're seeing Baker Mayfield, he has no time, he's pressured, he's just not the same guy as we saw last year. Or maybe he is, and we just had maybe too high expectations for the Browns, who have been a perennial losing team for the better part of the past 20 years.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Baker has, 12 interceptions on the year. That's a number you can't have. You can't be a franchise quarterback and have that. I mean, he's played in 9 games so far. 2 more interceptions, which I'm sure he's going to have. He's more than he threw the entire last season. I mean, you got to think it's a full team game, but he has to step up his play. And maybe last year what we saw wasn't true to what he is. And maybe he's now settling down. And this is the Baker that we have to deal with and the Browns have to deal with. Maybe he's not their franchise guy.
Or maybe he is, and I put a lot of this on Freddie Kitchens. And Freddie Kitchens, I think, was an irresponsible hire because he never had any head coaching experience at any level. So when you go he was a position coach before they promoted him to play caller last year. And Greg Williams was the head coach of this team after they fired Hugh Jackson. So when you go from a position coach to a play-calling offensive coordinator and then to a head coach and you've never done the job and you're still expected to call plays, that is a lot of responsibility for somebody who's never done it. Mm-hmm. And plus this offseason, the focus wasn't there, whether it was from Baker Mayfield and all of his commercials and endorsements and even Freddie Kitchens. I even saw him on a reality show with Baker Mayfield in the summertime. Like, what are you guys doing with all the expectations and all the talking you all did? You should have been a little bit more focused on football.
Yeah, the one person I never thought would be the quiet one is Odell. And, of course, he had the whole watch thing. Mm. But for Odell, I guess that is on the more quiet side. But, yeah, I mean, when it comes to an NFL team, you always hear they're a good locker room guy. It's a good locker room guy. They have good leadership. I think one of the struggles of the Brown is that locker room. Maybe it's not negative like it was in Pittsburgh last season with the Antonio Brown thing when Le'Veon Bell, but when you're having your head coaches switched out like that, there's no point of authority. Like, let's use the Patriots example. Bill Belichick has that team in line, and, I mean, the greatest coach of all time, but that's a perfect example. I think having this new coach come in, that's something that's really going to affect the Browns, and They have a young quarterback, a young team. They have to get some leadership in that locker room. And, I mean, we're never really going to know what it is like in there. But I think that's going to be an issue that we're going to see with this Browns team. They're young, and they need some proper guidance.
Take it today. Today's Wednesday, and I believe it was during Baker's press conference today, or it could have been yesterday. Regardless, he is still talking about last week's game. You need to be moved on by Monday night at the latest, thinking about the next game. And he's talking about the fans need to be quiet, so we can run our offense. Get off of it.
Short
Put
memory.
The game behind you.
Short memory. That's what he.
And
that's
it was
what the
a
NFL
win,
is.
and he still had something to complain about.
Yeah.
That was a win.
It has to be a short memory. That's what the NFL comes down to. And the best
Always
quarterbacks.
somebody else. There's zero accountability from Baker Mayfield either.
Exactly. I think of Baker Mayfield right now, the only thing I think about is Hulu has live cash. Hulu has live sports, I'm sorry. Hulu has live sports because between that and then, the Progressive commercials, I just got to think, what did this guy spend his offseason doing?
Commercial.
Yeah. You have a brand new star wide receiver coming in. You have to spend your offseason building that chemistry. You got Tom Brady and Julian Edelman traveling to the middle of nowhere, throwing passes through the woods. Baker and Odell should have been doing something very much like that. I think that that's something that an issue the Browns will deal with. But when I really think about it, can I blame Baker? He's on the Browns. He's young. He's trying to get that money. But the team is putting all their eggs in your basket. You got to be a little more responsible, and you got to prepare for the future.
I still put it more on Freddie than anybody else right now. Just because, Baker isn't the one out there committing all the penalties either. This team, there's a lot of penalties that set them back, and that's a discipline thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from the coach.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if, we see him there for the rest of the season, obviously, and then I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone by week 8 next year.
Freddie?
Yeah.
Freddie's not going to make it to next year. I cannot see, barring unless he goes on a run, he's not making it out of.
You don't think they're going to just give him a shot?
He's not making it to 2020. No. Why? Off of what?
I know. I don't think he deserves it, but for an NFL head coach, you have to give him a shot. Look at that team. They gave Hugh Jackson
2 weeks.
How many total wins did Hugh Jackson have as the Browns coach? And how many games was he the coach of? They give that guy unlimited lives. I can't picture them not doing the same thing.
But they've never had these expectations. Like the Browns, people were talking a Super Bowl contender.
I know.
In 2 weeks, week 12, they host the Miami Dolphins. And the Dolphins have been quietly getting better.
Mm-hmm.
They lose to the Dolphins at home. Freddie's getting fired after that game.
I think they do lose to the Dolphins. The Dolphins have been...
Talk about a team that can't even tank right.
I know. They, people have been, I think, sleeping on the Dolphins a little bit. I think the Dolphins are better than the Bengals. I think they're better than the Browns. I think they're better than the Jets. And I think they could be better than the Giants. Ryan Fitzpatrick, I'd rather have him as my quarterback than a lot of these other guys in the league right now. And, I think you put Fitzpatrick on the Browns. I think they maybe have one more win, maybe 2 more wins.
You really think so?
I do. I'm a big Fitzmagic type guy. He I love what he does with the ball. He always has. He's smart with the ball, but then he has those games where he just completely just crash and burn. But I've never been really on the Baker train. I think coming out of college, he got a lot of hype. But I didn't really see the that pure pocket passer that you want for your franchise guy. He gets things done the same way like an Aaron Rodgers would, but the mental game just isn't there like the rest of these NFL great quarterbacks.
He needs to mature, and maybe it happens. The Johnny Manziels of the world, Ryan Leafs of the world. They didn't mature. Ryan Leaf's doing really good now with his life, but it was a maturity thing. And if Baker can, grow as a person and improve his decision making off the field, I think it will translate on the field.
Yep. That is.
He's still a 24-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he's young. I mean, he's very young, and I mean, people forget it's his second year in the league. I mean, I think next year, if things aren't turned around a little bit and he doesn't start to at least show some good signs that he is developing into that quarterback of the future, I think they start looking, and maybe they start considering some other options. But I mean, that third year is when things should start coming together and he should start progressing a little bit more. What do you think about Kareem Hunt? Finally, he returned last week. Wasn't involved in the offense that much, but this has been a game he's talked from the offseason. This is what he is keying up. Do you think he plays a factor in this game?
Fantasy football-wise, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb in PPR had right around the same amount of fantasy points, because where Kareem Hunt made his impact is exactly where I thought it would, and that was in the passing game. He had 4 carries for 30 yards. He's not going to take a ton of carries away from Nick Chubb, because Nick Chubb is the bona fide RB1 for the Cleveland Browns in between the tackles. But as a receiver, I think Kareem Hunt is much more talented. He caught 7 of 9 targets for 44 yards, and I think that's where we're going to see him make his impact. So I actually do like Kareem Hunt to get anywhere from 10 to 12 touches a game, but most of them as a receiver.
Yeah, I mean...
And Kareem Hunt, we're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs and what's wrong with the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. Since they moved on from Kareem Hunt last season, that offense has not been the same.
I completely agree with that. I think he was very much undervalued this offseason when he was leaving that team. And Damian Williams stepped up towards the end of last season, so they thought, hey, this is just going to be another guy, next man up mentality. But I think he played a much bigger role in that offense. And he was a large factor in why they were so deadly last year. But yeah, I could see Kareem Hunt definitely in the passing game. He made an impact last week. He had I'm pulling up right now. You just said 7 receptions, 44 yards, only 4 carries for 30 yards. But first game back, those aren't bad numbers. I think he's gonna be a key factor in this game, and I think he's someone that really does end up being that point where you look at the Browns season, you're like, hey, this is the turning point. That's what switched their offense up. Again, it's going to come down to coaching. Can they stay disciplined? Will they not commit the penalties? But it's going to be an interesting game. You got to love when the Steelers head to Cleveland. What do you think about the quarterbacks in this game? We talked a little bit about Mason. Talked a lot about Baker. I want to talk about the best quarterback in the AFC North. Obviously, they have Lamar Jackson. He's putting up career numbers right now in the MVP discussion. Let's fast forward 5 years from now. Who do you think is the best quarterback in the NFC North?
In the AFC North?
Yes.
In 5 years. I think it's Lamar Jackson by default.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard.
From what
it's
we
hard
see
to not
right
say Lamar
now,
Jackson right now.
I mean, Andy Dalton's going to be playing, maybe starting for the Bears next season. And, Ryan Finley, it's a wait and see with him. We've seen one game. We don't know what's going on in Pittsburgh, but in 5 years, it's not going to be Big Ben regardless. He'll be retired. Whether it's this year, next year, he's not going to make it another 5 years in the league. This is a Big Ben who has contemplated retirement almost as much as Brett Favre had in his final couple years. So it leaves Baker and Lamar Jackson, and assuming Lamar Jackson learns how to protect himself from injury, and he has so far, it's going to be Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious to see how Lamar Jackson holds up. You have to think there's gonna be a point over these next couple of years where he does make a major switch in his game, where he does start throwing the ball a little more, stop relying on his legs as much. I just think I think you have to. in the way the NFL is, they protect the Tom Brady's, the Aaron Rodgers, but when Lamar Jackson is such a threat on the ground, I don't think he's going to get the same protection from the refs that these other guys get. So I wouldn't be surprised if around year 4, maybe early year 5, we start seeing him throwing the ball a little bit more and not relying on the legs. I mean, it's a division with 3 young quarterbacks. I personally think I wouldn't be surprised if Mason Rudolph ends up being that guy for Pittsburgh.
Wow.
I like what he's done so far. Obviously, that is a pretty complete team when you think about their defense, some of the weapons they have. I think he gets a shot next year, obviously. He makes it through the whole season. I think he's going to have pretty good numbers. He's not going to be one of these guys where you look at it and you're like, wow, that guy is amazing. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see similar an Andy Dalton type player. Obviously not this year how he's been. A Derek Carr type player over the past couple years. He's a middle of the road guy, but with the proper tools around him, he can get it done. I think that's what we'll see out of Mason Rudolph. Baker, on the other hand, I don't think he can be that guy because I just don't have faith in the Browns putting the proper tools around him and having the proper guidance and leadership like we talked about with the head coach. They haven't done it in the past. What's to say they're going to do it now? So, I mean, I like to think it would be Baker, but I mean, I'm going to have to go with Lamar Jackson as well. I just think it's a good organization. Things would go in his direction to be that guy. So, I mean, this game is going to have some playoff implications behind it. The Browns basically are out of it, but the AFC, the wild card is pretty much up for grabs. There is still a very, very, very small chance. If the Steelers win, what do you think about the playoffs for them? If the Browns win, do you think they can string along a couple more wins and somehow squeak in?
I mean, they have Pittsburgh coming up twice in the next 3 games, sandwiched in between the Miami Dolphins. And then coming out of that 3-game stretch, you host the Bengals. You go to Arizona, who's playing phenomenal. Then you're home with Baltimore, and then at Cincinnati. They'd have to beat Pittsburgh once. They'd have to, beat Miami. You have to sweep the Bengals. You're probably not going to beat Baltimore a second time, and you got to beat the Cardinals.
I mean, I think
so. You have to go what? 2? You can lose twice in the next 7 games.
I mean, I don't think it's out of the question. I mean, let's look. The Bengals, I think,
even at 5-2, that puts them at 8-8.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it happens at 8-8.
I mean, I could if they win tomorrow night, I think they go into Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the Steelers right now. Wow, I'm completely out of it right now. All right, yeah. So, I mean, 8-8, yeah, it's a stretch. But when you think about the AFC as a whole right now, I mean, there's not many powerhouse teams. It's not like the NFC. I could definitely see if there's a year where an 8-8 team makes into playoffs, I think this is the year from the AFC. I mean, what is the wild card looking at right now? It's the Steelers are that last wild card team at 5-4. They're tied with the Raiders and the Colts. The Titans are also there at 5-5.
You're factoring in Buffalo here at 6-3, right?
I'm considering Buffalo automatically has that first wild card spot.
Okay.
Because I think Buffalo is going to sort of put things together, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they end this year with only 3 losses. I think that team is very good. I think they should have beat the Patriots earlier in the year if it wasn't for a cheap shot on Josh Allen. I think they win that game. And
I mean, the Patriots couldn't score the football. They scored, I believe, 1 offensive touchdown, and if it wasn't for that defense special teams touchdown, Buffalo wins that game.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
But out of the AFC West, we're talking about it before. KC is only a game ahead of Oakland. They both have 4 losses, but KC has 1 more win.
Mm-hmm.
If Oakland somehow squeezes that division out, you almost have to lock Kansas City into a wild card spot. If you look at the AFC South, that division's up for grabs. You can make a case for any one of those teams, including Jacksonville, who is getting Nick Foles back. They're 4-5, but we've seen Nick Foles go on those runs. They have a really good running back in Leonard Fournette who can get going, and that defense has actually played better without Jalen Ramsey. You got Tennessee, have the hottest quarterback in football, 3-1. Ryan Tannehill's thrown for about 300 yards in 3 out of 4 games he started. The Colts, I'm starting to lose hope in the Colts because they have not looked good without Jacoby Brissett, so they absolutely need him back. And if he comes back too early and re-injures that knee, they're done with Brian Hoyer. And then the Texans, as good as Deshaun Watson is, do they have enough firepower on offense, not named DeAndre Hopkins? Who's going to step up? And if it's Will Fuller, he has a big pop game and then either gets hurt or fades away. Same thing with Kenny Stills. Really, their second best receiving option is the tight end tandem of Fells and Akins.
Yep. So who do you think wins that division? Do you think, Nick Foles coming back, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jaguars end up giving the Texans a run for their money.
I picked Jacksonville in the preseason, and I'm going to still stick with them.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to see Nick Foles do it. I kind of disagree with the Texans pick. I think Deshaun Watson is the real deal. Obviously you're not saying that, but I think he's good enough where he can turn other players around him into good weapons. So I don't think he just needs DeAndre Hopkins. I think he can get it done with all those guys they have over there.
It's almost a Mahomes narrative where, Deshaun Watson and Pat Mahomes, they don't play defense. And not only did the Houston Texans trade away Clowney, but they also lost J.J. Watt. So can this defense be good enough? Or are the Houston Texans going to have to outscore you like the Chiefs?
Mm-hmm. And that's, bringing it into a little fantasy perspective here, that's one of the reasons why I love Watson in fantasy, DeAndre Hopkins, because their defense isn't there, especially since they've lost J.J. Watt a couple weeks ago. They have to outscore you. And that's one of the reasons why, like you said, Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, why they were so dominant in fantasy last season. Every game was a shootout. And it's going to be an interesting run for them. The Jaguars, you know what, another team in that division that I wouldn't be surprised if somehow ends up towards the top and could take that top spot, the Tennessee Titans. Since Tannehill took over, that team, they obviously upset the Chiefs in Patrick Mahomes' first game back, but their defense has been playing phenomenal, and Tannehill has just sort of flipped the whole narrative on the Titans.
Yeah, he has, but the key to the Tennessee Titans making a run is going to be Derrick Henry. For the first time, I believe in his career, Derrick Henry, he's third in the league in rushing attempts, and that's always been the narrative holding Henry back. Is he going to get the workload all season long? We've seen Derrick Henry get the workload this year, and they're winning a couple games. I think the big difference is Ryan Tannehill, to where he can run this offense and is more reliable and more productive than Marcus Mariota ever was. Mm-hmm. I thought Tannehill, is another off-season take. I thought he should have started in week 1. They should have pulled the plug on Mariota. But that day was coming because you don't sign a player like Ryan Tannehill to put behind Marcus Mariota, who's probably already nervous about his job, unless you plan on putting him in.
Yep.
Because Mariota's on a short leash. If you look at the backups the Titans have had in Mariota, it was Matt Castle. He wasn't taking a job.
Mm-hmm. Mariota's on a contract year. Do you think...
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I already know what you're going to ask. And Absolutely not. I have questions about Jameis Winston, who's also in a
That was my next
contract.
question. I mean, do you see a scenario where those two guys end up switching?
Not switching, but I can see a scenario where they both, and these were number 1 and 2 picks in that draft class, where they're both not getting a second contract with their current teams. But Winston has not been terrible this year. To be fair,
Mm.
he's had his Jameis Winston games where he's turning it over 4 or 5 times, but he's also looked pretty good in this Bruce Arians offense.
I mean, he's the QB whisperer, so he should. It took him a little bit to get it going, but do you think Winston comes back in Tampa Bay?
I think he has a better shot than Marcus Mariota ever will.
What team? What's a good team that you can see Mariota going to? Could it be possibly a Ravens as a backup over there?
Yeah, he's not. I don't think Mariota starts unless he's signed as a backup somewhere, which will happen, and then he gets in because of an injury. I don't see a scenario where another team like the Chicago Bears, let's say they want to move on from Trubisky. Let's say the Denver Broncos, because Brandon Allen looked okay, but this is a guy in his first start. He beat an inferior team. So let's say they're in a quarterback market. If you can possibly get Andy Dalton or Cam Newton, what are you going to do with Marcus Mariota?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He has. I mean, he does offer a little bit more legs than those other guys, which that's why I could see him fitting into the Ravens. They wouldn't have to really switch their. They have RG3 as their backup right now. With Mariota in there, they wouldn't really have to switch up their offense too much if Jackson does go down. But there's not many options for him. It's going to be interesting how this one plays out. What back to the playoffs though? What other teams do you think will end up sneaking into the playoffs?
From the AFC, I don't think there's going to be many surprises. I think the biggest surprise would probably be, and this is if they can somehow go on a run themselves, is the Chargers, because they certainly have the talent to.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't trust their offensive line. Because the Raiders' pass rush isn't the greatest, and they were all over Phillip Rivers and made him very uncomfortable in that loss on Thursday night. But other than that, it's your surprise team, or it's the Raiders and it's the Steelers, because nobody expected them, especially the Steelers after losing Big Ben, to even be in the conversation.
I mean, the Chargers they're pretty much with the Titans a couple weeks ago. They're one play away from getting a win there. With the Raiders last week, they're a couple plays from getting that win. Both those games could easily go either direction, and we could be talking about the Chargers at the top of that division right now. So, yeah, I agree with you. If they, as much as I hate to say it, the Integrated Nation is coming out for me. I can see the Chargers ending up near the top of the division. The AFC is a lot closer than I thought. It's nowhere near as powerful as the NFC. The NFC, they're obviously the Rams division, dealing with the 49ers and the Seahawks in there. I feel bad for the Rams over there because I don't think they make the playoffs this year. But it could be a situation very similar to that over here in the AFC. So let's switch up the topic a little bit right now. We did our power rankings show yesterday, and we debuted our PlaySqorr power rankings. So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about those a little bit. We're going to go over the top 10 teams. Let's start it off with number 10. We got the Buffalo Bills. At number 9, the Vikings. Houston Texans, Kansas City Chiefs, New Orleans Saints to round out 6 through 10. Let's go over to 1 through 5. Coming in at number 5 with the Green Bay Packers. Then the San Francisco 49ers. Number 3, the Seattle Seahawks. Followed by the Baltimore Ravens. And at number 1, the New England Patriots. Let's break down this list. What are you thinking?
I get the Patriots at number 1, but after what we have seen from the Baltimore Ravens, I would probably put them as my number 1 team in the league right now. And it's not only Lamar Jackson. It's the fact that Marcus Peters trade, we talked a lot about the impact that Minkah Fitzpatrick had for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, the Baltimore Ravens acquired Marcus Peters, and this was a secondary that, it took a couple weeks to really get going because Jimmy Smith missed most of the first half of the year, who was their best cornerback, and it was really Earl Thomas and Marlon Humphreys holding down the fort. And then you acquire Marcus Peters and you have Jimmy Smith coming back, and all of a sudden your secondary is one of the best in the NFL. And just like Minka has been making plays, Marcus Peters has been making plays and scoring off of his turnovers for the Baltimore Ravens. So I think with the way this defense is beginning to gel, plus Lamar Jackson, the way they can run the ball, they have a pair of really quality pass-catching tight ends, and I think Hollywood Brown, as he gets healthier, is only going to get better. That puts Baltimore up top, and plus what they did to the New England Patriots. The Patriots are not the same team to me. This is a team that their offense is really in the middle of the pack. They're having issues running the ball. It looks like Sony Michel's getting phased out. He only had 4 carries. James White was getting the goal line opportunities against Baltimore. Yes, they have a really, really good defense, but eventually you're going to run into teams who can put up points. And I don't exactly trust the Patriots to be able to go blow for blow with these good teams. If you look at the teams that New England beat, they weren't the best teams in the world. And once you face a really good one like the Ravens, you got handled. Mm-hmm. And you said it before, the Patriots barely beat the Bills. And that was the best team that they played previous to the Ravens.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree with you more. I think when it comes to the Patriots, I think this Patriots team is extremely overrated. I think their defense has gotten much more hype than they ever should. They were putting up impressive stats. Don't get me wrong, it's the NFL. The players are still great, and all these teams are going to have decent offenses. The fact that through week 8, they were averaging 6.4 points per game. No matter how you look at it, you can play the Jets every week. That's impressive. But let's take a look at their schedule, who they played so far. Week 1, Steelers, 33-3 win. Only giving them 3 points. It's impressive, but correct me if I'm wrong. Is that not the week Big Ben got hurt?
No, I believe Big Ben was actually healthy for that whole game.
Was he?
Yeah.
Okay, well then my point doesn't make sense. But regardless, we know it's not the same Steelers team offensively.
But, the Steelers, Bill Belichick has Pittsburgh's number.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. He has for years. That was another outing of it. Week 2, 43-0 at the Dolphins. I mean, you put up 43 points to any team, it's impressive. Holding a shutout's impressive. But again, it's the Dolphins. That was the week they came out that they're publicly tanking. Next week, the Jets put up 14 on them. It's the Jets. Another garbage team. Then they play the Bills and they almost lose. The Bills' offense, the Bills are good, but their offense isn't up there with these other teams. So it's gonna it's Josh Allen. I'm not fully sold on him. But then they take on the Redskins, the Giants, the Jets, and the Browns. Before the Ravens, they played one team that is good.
With a winning record.
Yeah. I just think people are on the Patriots train like they always are. Their offense isn't as good as it's been. The defense has been carrying them. I think this is the year where we see the Patriots not only not get that first round bye, I think they're out of the playoffs in the first round.
I don't know about that because it is Tom Brady and it's Belichick, and as long as they have that one home field, that one game at home, I think they'll be fine. It's if they have to go on the road. Like last year, if they would have had to go on the road, correct me if I'm wrong, that they had home field advantage last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if they had to go on the road in the championship game, it could have been different. I think the Patriots could struggle on the road in the postseason, but it's Brady and Belichick, and they will always have the edge in the postseason just because it's Brady and Belichick.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the way it's shaping up right now, the Patriots, it looks like they're going to end up playing the Raiders in the first round, so I want to really believe that they're going to get eliminated that first round, but I don't know. Like, it is Brady, it is Belichick, but I think this team is going to have a wake-up call in the next few weeks.
I mean, I think New England gets the first round bye. I think it's them in Baltimore.
I mean, looking at the standings, the only other team that I think could take it would be the Texans. But, I mean, when we look at the Patriots' schedule over the next couple weeks, they got the Eagles this week. I wouldn't be surprised if
it gets tougher.
If the Cowboys beat them. Then they play the Texans. I wouldn't be surprised if the Texans beat them. Then the Chiefs. This is 3-4 weeks in a row where, if we count the Eagles as a tough game, which they certainly could, they have a decent offense led by Carson Wentz. We can see 4 weeks where the Patriots are gonna have a tough test. These are all good offenses. Outside of the Ravens, these are the 4 best offensive they played all year. If you had the Patriots in fantasy, I think you definitely, if you traded them before that Ravens game, I think you definitely could have gotten a lot for them. And it was a great move because I think they have a tough stretch coming up, and I think the world's going to be shocked by these next couple games.
I hope so. I'm a Cowboys fan, but it's even if they go 5-2 in the final 7 games, that would put them at 3 losses. And let's say the Ravens lose one more, the Ravens still have the tiebreaker, so they would be the number 1 seed with the Patriots taking the 2 seed.
Mm-hmm. But what about
for the Houston? Houston would have to go on a complete run. They would have to go on a complete run, not lose again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a tough task.
It is. It is. What do you think about these other rankings we have? Let's go back to 10 through 6. Kansas City is in there at 7. Do you think that's a fair ranking for them? Do you think it's partly because of the hype around this team?
With Mahomes back, I think they are going to improve and they are going to win more games, clearly. But I'm still in wait-and-see mode. Is their defense going to improve? Can they sustain a running game? I know they gave it to Damian Williams, I believe, 19 times on the ground last week. Will they continue to commit to him? Because that's what they're going to need to do. They need to run the football. They're going to need to grind clock because you don't want the opposing offense on the field against your defense. Mm-hmm. So you need your offense who can score at will to actually sustain a drive and keep the other offense off the field. That's your best chance of winning with that defense playing as poorly as it is.
Mm-hmm. I mean, whenever you got Patrick Mahomes in there, you have to give him respect. They do have the weapons. We all know this. But I do feel 7 is a little high for this team until Mahomes comes back and really proves that he's going to repeat like he did last year. I mean, the season he put on last year, you can't duplicate that. I don't think anyone's expecting him to. But the loss to the Titans was a bit of a reality check for this team, I think. And you hit it on the head. The defense has to produce. The defense has to play, and they can't rely on their offense like they did last year.
You have the Saints, who are just coming off of a tough loss at 6. I think it's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just a weird game. I think it was an anomaly because when does the Saints team just not score a touchdown?
Yeah.
And it was against a divisional opponent. As bad as the Falcons are, these division games can go any way. But the Saints are a team that could possibly move up depending on how the Packers and 49ers game turns out.
Mm-hmm.
And they play each other next week.
Yeah. I mean, and that's another point. I could see it seems like the 49ers are just getting no respect at this point. I mean,
their quarterback.
Exactly. Thinking about, just looking at their offense in general, even fantasy-wise, they didn't really have any of those guys that were those high-ticket first-round guys. Yeah, they got George Kittle, who may be a second-rounder, late first-rounder, depending on your league. But that team, it's not it's not your typical 8-1 team, in my opinion, at least. What about the Packers? I mean, let's talk about them a little bit. Any team with Aaron Rodgers on it is always going to be a contender. Could always easily move up the rankings. They take on the 49ers next week. Going to be a huge statement game. If they win that game, I wouldn't be surprised seeing them move up to number 3. They have then 2 easier weeks after that, Redskins and Giants.
Well, that's the thing with Aaron Rodgers. We've seen really good Aaron Rodgers, and then Aaron Rodgers where he either didn't have to do much or he just lays an egg like a couple weeks ago against the Chargers. Like, what was that?
Yeah.
Where that offense just didn't show up. I don't know if they're continuing to, have a little bit of growing pains in the new system because as great, Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer, all-world talent, but when you're in one system, in Mike McCarthy's system for 10 years, 12 years, however long it's been, there's going to be growing pains going into a new system like Matt LaFleur's.
Mm-hmm.
These receivers, Devontae Adams missed a ton of time. Nobody stepped up. Where everybody thought it was going to be Geronimo Allison and MVS, it's been Kumaro and Alan Lazard, who I feel have Aaron Rodgers' trust. Jimmy Graham drops a ton of passes.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for these running backs and Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, I think this Packers team would have a few more losses. The defense played great in the first couple games of the year, and they've regressed. So we're going to know a lot about who the Packers are and who the 49ers are in Week 12.
Mm-hmm. I'm very excited for that game. I'm very happy you got the Sunday Night Football slot. I think that's going to be one of the biggest games of the year because that's going to tell us, like you said, it's going to tell us a ton. Are the 49ers legit? And can the Packers come through and get a win when it really matters? It's a statement game for both these teams. So I'm happy it is the Sunday night game. I've been pretty much... How do you feel about the primetime games this year so far? We've had a couple good ones.
Thursday night's always tough.
Mm-hmm.
But on Sunday Night Football, I don't know if I've been disappointed once.
Yeah, I was thinking early in the year that when I first looked at this Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night schedule, obviously you can't flex Thursday nights, but I was thinking, wow, I wish they started flex scheduling way earlier, and I wish they did it way more. Because there's some weeks where I'm just watching, I'm like, I wish that was the primetime game, but then they impressed me, like Giants Cowboys a couple weeks ago. When I saw that on the schedule, I was like, oh, this is going to be a garbage game, but it ended up being a pretty exciting one. So yeah, Packers 49ers, it's going to be a good one. I'm excited for that. All right, let's see if we have any comments, any questions from anyone about our power rankings. Right now, we have the 49ers getting some love in the chat. The Seahawks, what do we think about the Seahawks? That was from Jesse Rice. What do we think about the Seahawks?
The Steelers, the Seahawks, they won a really tough game the other night against the undefeated 49ers team. Tyler Lockett's banged up, but he's expected to be fine moving forward, which is a huge save because losing Lockett could really have changed the dynamic of their season. But the Seahawks, anytime you have Russell Wilson and the way he can rally a team, Pete Carroll's a really good coach. You can run the ball with Chris Carson. You have that 12th man home field advantage. I think the Seahawks, they're not going away. And I think they could possibly end up on top of the NFC. Much to the dismay of a 49er fan, they don't want to hear that, but if you, just like in Aaron Rodgers versus Jimmy Garoppolo, anytime you have Russell Wilson versus Jimmy Garoppolo, until Jimmy Garoppolo proves me otherwise, I'm going to side with the better quarterback 9 times out of 10.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Russell Wilson, the year he's been having is just amazing.
And, a possible league winner in fantasy football, they lose Will Dissly, and all of a sudden Jacob Hollister scored a couple touchdowns, I think 3 touchdowns in his past 2 games. I think he's going to make an impact on this offense at tight end. DK Metcalf is really beginning to come into his own in his rookie year. And then you have Josh Gordon. You're not asking Josh Gordon to be a number 1 or a number 2 receiver because he's just not that guy. And he was never going to be that guy with the Patriots or anybody else at this point in his career because all of the time missed. But to be a number 3 receiver with Russell Wilson as your quarterback, who is the best quarterback that he'll ever play with, because in 2019, Wilson's better than Brady. In 2019, I can't stress that enough. In this year, so I think Gordon will make some plays for this offense. So yeah, the Seahawks have a shot of finishing on top of the NFC.
Another question that just came in: does Josh Gordon take away from DK Metcalf and what he's been doing? Can Josh Gordon potentially be a number 1 when it comes to fantasy? I guess they're asking.
No.
No.
If it didn't happen with the Patriots, a team that actually needed somebody to step up, with the way DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett have been playing, I think Gordon's just going to be that complimentary big play wide receiver 3, which is really all Seattle needs. And fantasy, I don't know if I'm holding a roster spot for him. If Lockett was to miss time, then yeah, absolutely scoop up Gordon. But with these other 2 guys ahead of Gordon right now, I just don't see it.
Can you ever see Gordon after the season maybe going to another team and being a number 1 and living up to the hype that he's always had?
No, because the hype is from 2014. And since that time, he's missed a lot of games, a lot of years, and your body, there's really a difference between being in shape and being in football shape, in my opinion. That time missed, plus you're getting older, it just doesn't catch up. It just hasn't caught up to him.
Mm-hmm.
Or it has caught up to him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing with Josh Gordon, I feel like a lot of people think is because we didn't see him age on the football field, people are still thinking, yeah, this is his first time really playing in the league since he's, first came in, and since this is the first time he's been clean. They think he's still that young guy that is tearing up the league like he did very shortly in 2014. I will be interested to see how that plays out. I think he does get a shot with another team, and they do see what he can do. But yeah, you hit it on the head right there. I'm the same way. I don't think he does. I don't think he lowers the value of Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf as he's been coming up.
Think about how much the NFL changes on a week-to-week basis, and people are chasing 2014, which was 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point. That is a great point. In my league alone, we do Fab Budget, and Josh Gordon was signed for $65 beginning of the year.
When? Wow.
So, for someone...
it made... In theory, it made sense.
Yeah, you take a chance on a guy. It doesn't... It wasn't the craziest. But, yeah, thinking about it now, we'll see what happens. Maybe he does have a couple big games, but I don't think he is valuable enough to, or trustworthy enough to have in your lineup on a regular basis, if at all. Yeah, do we have any other questions? I think that's pretty much it. Any closing comments, Anthony?
Who do you like tomorrow night?
Ooh, that is a good one. I want to say the Browns. I think that's a question where who I want to win, who I think will win. I want the Browns to win. But I just don't. I can't put the trust. I can't put the trust in Baker Mayfield or that coaching. I think it's going to be a much closer game than everyone thinks. But I think the Steelers get it. I think the Steelers
same here. I take the Steelers and the points. And I think we see the Pittsburgh defense. They're going to make a play at some point and capitalize on Baker Mayfield's bad decision making. That's going to be a difference in the game.
What are you thinking for the over-under?
40, that's a low total. I would probably go under.
What does it set to right now? What is it? 40
and a half.
40 and a half? Yeah, it is low. It is low. And it when you think about these teams in the offense, every time with the over-under, it always seems low until a couple scoring plays happen, and then you're like, oh wow, 40 isn't that
Right, yeah, because that's really what 20 points aside, or a 20-19 score, right? That's 30. Yeah, 20. That's 39.
Yeah, we got Steve Slee commenting. What's up, Steve? What do you think of this game? But yeah, I mean, I think the Steelers get this win. Final score, I'm taking the over as well. 24-21. Steelers get it. Browns fail on a game-winning drive. And yeah.
See, these games generally it looks like they go over, but that was a Big Ben led Steelers team.
Yeah.
That was a more offensive Steelers teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. It's gonna be a good game. I'm excited for it. I like how they're doing these Thursday night games as division rivals. I do wish they would bring back color rush jerseys like they were. A couple years ago, do you remember the one where they what was it, the Jets against maybe the Cardinals? It was like all green, all red, and they had all the colorblind people complaining about that.
I liked the color rush jerseys for the most part. I thought it was fun, except the Seahawks, they look like highlighters.
Oh yeah, people complained about them, said they look like college jerseys too much. But I thought it was cool. Just another way for the NFL to make money. Sell more
Anything
jerseys.
to sell merchandise. Yep.
That's all it is. It's a money-making league. But, Anthony, it was great chatting with you. Week 11.
Thanks for having me on.
Week 11 is a big week. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Guys, go follow Anthony on Twitter, @TheRealNFLGuru. Follow PlaySqorr TV. All these players we talked about, you can find on the PlaySqorr app. Head to the App Store, download it. Use promo code PlaySqorrTV. You'll get $5 so that you can play the app. It's a lot of fun. But other than that, Anthony, we'll talk soon. Good luck this week,
Absolutely.
everybody.
You too.